In the earlier video, we have seen as how we recognize an object in acquisition of our knowledge. An object, as I said earlier in the earlier videos, and also in my podcast, in Anchor, Ramani's podcast, and also I have written in detail about these subjects in my website www.ramanisblog.in. There are qualities through which we know an object as such. When we are looking at something, we observe, we perceive the qualities that go to make up that object, and we give it a name. Our brain gives it a name. And we have given it a name and we recollect it by the name. And sometimes when we come across a specific quality, we associate it with the name which we have described. Let me try to explain this. Now, if we are looking at a rose, rose has many qualities. Like one is through the sense of eyes. We see its color, say rose, and there are various colors in rose also. Black rose, white rose, pink rose, yellow rose, etc. And it also has a distinct smell, that also we know. And it is found in nurseries, in home, and also in forest. And how it is grown also we know. And we know that people do use it. In the case of India, they use it in puja, and people keep it on their heads also, on braided hair. So what we do is that what our mind does it when we are trying to look at a rose, we just look at an object and then try to find, and our mind immediately looks at its color, then its smell, etc., and other things, not necessarily in this order because it is predisposed. We will deal with it later. And it immediately remembers, yes, this I have already seen. So this is a rose. So this is how an awareness of the object which we are seeing, or to be more specific, which we are perceiving, comes to us. Now the question is, we have independent qualities in an object. Let us take the example of, if I take the example of a man, it will be easy, but the point is you will get confused. Because easy in the sense for me to express, for you to understand, it will complicate. This will be easier. The rose example will be easier. Now, when you are looking at a rose, you see a color, you perceive a distinctive fragrance and some attributes, it has petals, etc. All the other attributes we are looking at in a rose. But now, individually, any of these attributes or qualities, we call it here, do not make up the rose. For example, the color alone doesn't go to make up a rose. And the fragrance alone doesn't go to make up a rose. All of these jointly present us a picture of rose. Now, when these things are independently present, not in rose. For example, the color pink is available in the universe, which we can observe. It is not found, not necessarily only in the rose. When we see a pink color outside the rose, when we smell the fragrance of a rose outside the rose, we still recognize it as pink and also as the fragrance of rose. Now the point is, do we have the frame of reference as the color or as the fragrance in our mind, by applying which we specify rose because of these attributes? Now put it very simply in a common language. Do we identify a rose because of its smell and also its color, or do we recognize the fragrance or the color, pink or white or yellow, whatever it might be, because of the rose? That is, do we form an awareness because of a general idea which we have in our mind about qualities? We call it as, let us call it as attributes in our mind. And when we come across a specific instance, we apply that general idea we have in our mind and call it as a specific thing. That is, we already know how a pink color looks, and we also know how, the fragrance of rose smells. Now, the point which we have to note here is that how do we arrive at the general idea we have in our mind of the fragrance and also the color which we perceive and later apply to individual objects? I am deliberately speaking very slowly because the concept is very abstract and it is very difficult to understand unless we think very carefully, and we shall come and then proceed later in the next video.